Right now, it is time for Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven. Arthur joins us on a Monday morning. We rebroadcast Arthur on the weekend and also during our noontime news hour during the week as well. And it's time to bring in Arthur. Good morning, Arthur.
Good morning and happy almost Thanksgiving.
Yep, I have somebody that actually sent in an email that I want to read to you, and I'm gonna then send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
It's from a guy by the name of Mark Gross. Okay.
Okay.
And actually, I think it's from Mark. It came from Mark Gross's email, but Suzanne is the one who sent it in. Hello, Marshall. I'm a regular listener to Arthur Schwartz every Monday morning. Actually, I listen when I walk. I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I've been a fan of Arthur's going back to his WOR days. I've been following his traveling with being on the keto diet. My daughter cooks this way for her daughter. She has epilepsy, and this type of diet has helped her. I understand his missing pasta. Don't think I can give up that for sure, but she has found Hearts of Palm pasta. It's available on Amazon, of course. So Hearts of Palm pasta.
It's okay. I'm eating pasta for Thanksgiving.
All right.
I am having. We were staying home. The doctors in Philadelphia think this is prudent. I really miss them all, but as everybody misses their family if they're staying safe. But we're going to stay in Brooklyn and safe where we are and eat spaghetti alla carbonara. As Calvin Trillin said, we all should be doing back in 1981 when he wrote this humor column about why are we eating turkey. Anyway, and I'm having the other thing that I deeply crave is chocolate cake. This particular chocolate cake, which has become known as Brooklyn blackout cake. It's sort of a replica of the original Ebbinger's blackout cake. Ebbinger's was a famous bakery. Anyway, that's what we're having for Thanksgiving, and we're having the blackout cupcakes to make sure that we don't binge.
How
very good.
How does that make sure you don't binge?
Because we each get one cupcake.
Oh,
Although we're actually discussing this, maybe we should just get one cupcake for two. We're scared to go off the diet, is what it amounts to. we're dreading the result of eating spaghetti carbonara. The other thing, but there is one. I'm not craving turkey at all, and I'm not going to miss turkey. I toyed with the idea of making duck. I think I talked to you about that, but. We're going to have, you know what, I didn't want to talk about this today. What I wanted to talk about is I realized this week that I am, and I'm making up this word, I'm a Globovre. Remember locavore? A locavore is somebody who only eats foods that are grown, produced, raised locally. Now, I once asked this a woman who sells goat cheese from Vermont, and she said she was a locavore. I said, well, first of all, you're bringing this cheese to Brooklyn already. For me, it's not locavore. Is this? And I said, I always wonder about you guys in Vermont. What do you eat in the winter? Just root vegetables? And she said, yeah. So, I don't know. I need green stuff and other colored stuff. And I have been buying excellent red peppers grown in Mexico at a very reasonable price. I've been buying a lot of things that are grown far away and are shipped here. This week we discovered that these cantaloupes we've been buying, which are like the best we've ever eaten, I'm not exaggerating. Bob exaggerates with that expression, the best ever, but I don't. But these truly are the best, among the best ever. They're coming from Guatemala, because of course, I thought they might be coming from the Southwest, like from Arizona. I know they grow a lot of melons in Arizona, but no. I eat foods that not only do I buy products, produce that's grown. For instance, a garlic. You're not going to find locally grown garlic unless you bought some in late September, and you're storing it well in your house. But mostly the locally grown garlic is not a variety that lasts for a long time. I used to buy a variety from a woman in Oregon, and she grew this garlic as a hobby. Basically, she said it was to make some money for nice vacations with her husband. And then she retired and doesn't do the garlic anymore. But anyway, garlic is not going to be from local for sure anymore. You're probably going to find some California garlic out there. The harvest there is July, August. Until New Year, you often find California garlic. But then it's all going to come from south of the border. And you'll have, if you want to eat garlic, you have no choice. And then there's tropical fruits. I've given up tropical fruits because they're not on the keto diet, but I usually love Bob has not. Bob has a banana a day still. Yes, that's a tropical fruit, and they're very, very high in sugar. The only fruits that are low in sugar, really, are berries, which are also high in fiber, and watermelon, and now we're eating cantaloupe. Has a few more carbs than I was eating with cantaloupe and with strawberries, but I have to have some fruit, so it's cantaloupe. So, and they're not grown here. Now, the other thing is, I realize, and I've realized this many years ago, especially when I had long, extended stays in Italy, that the thing I missed most about New York was that I could eat from any part of the globe on any given day, and it would only be 15 minutes from my house by car, maybe 25 minutes to get to Brighton Beach, it's 25 minutes. So I got accustomed to that, and now with COVID, if the places are really open, it's outside, tented safely or not. Some of these tents, by the way, are not so safe because they're closed in on three sides. And or even all around, for that matter. I saw some on TV that were plastic tents that were really little pods. And by the way, although I don't think if you're eating with people in your own household, it's okay. But anyway, I miss all that, and I've been trying to cook, a little Mexican, a little Chinese, and I realize I'm not all that good at it. Because these are not, so if you'll recall a few weeks ago, I said something about Jill told me I should go back to my roots and cook Italian, and I did. And still, Italian from the Alps down to Sicily is still my territory. It's a big territory with a lot of different cuisines within it. It's not, Italian is not a cuisine. So yesterday, apropos of my Globovre tendencies, I made something I've sort of been yearning for, even though I don't get this in a restaurant, adobo, Filipino adobo. It's sort of, adobo is, you have to say, the national dish of the Philippines. But there are so many different ways to make adobo that it's not one dish. But what it is an acidic, I'm going to generalize, and then I can give you some specifics. Because, by the way, this recipe turned out really well. I read a lot of comments about it. It's a New York Times cooking website recipe, so it appeared in the New York Times at some point. And it's adobo with coconut milk. But one of the there was some comments about it, and I'm going to follow a couple of the comments. But anyway, adobo in general is a marinade of vinegar, soy sauce, usually the seasonings are garlic, a lot of pepper, could be hot red pepper, could be a black pepper. In the case of this recipe I made yesterday, both. And actually next time I'm going to make it even more peppery. And you marinate your, I guess you could do, it doesn't have to be chicken, you could be meat, in this marinade. And of course, the acidity of a vinegar marinade, there's no oil in the marinade, but the acidity of this really tenderizes, in the case of the chicken I made yesterday, the chicken. Because the chickens I've been buying have been lately, I don't know why, I know why, they've grown too big. You cannot find a 3-pound chicken anymore. This is my kvetch of the week. I cannot find any chickens 3 pounds or under.
Yep, 5 pounds is the lowest they go. 5 pounds is about the lowest they go now.
Well, 4.
Yeah, all right.
I can get a 4. At my butcher shop, all the chickens are on display in the case. There are some in the back. I'm certain. I know. But we picked out the smallest one in the case, and it was like 4.5 pounds. Anyway, I don't like breast meat very much anyway, so I'm not buying whole chickens lately. But you can't find one. So where was I with this? Let me give you the actual recipe I made yesterday. And what I bought was, so I was saying I've been finding these chickens a little tough. And yesterday, after marinating them, they were as tender as could be. So the recipe, this marinade has coconut milk. And I bought some. Everybody's got coconut milk now. It's such an easy product. In fact, I find that there's big end-of-aisle displays of coconut milk. So I have to do more research on coconut products and coconut milk. So it's 1 cup of coconut milk, 1.5 cups of vinegar. Now, I used unseasoned rice wine vinegar. I go out of my way to find the unseasoned on the shelf because most rice wine vinegar is seasoned with, and that means it's sugar added because it's meant for making sushi rice, which does have sugar added. So one of the comments about this recipe was that if you're not using the seasoned rice vinegar with the sugar, you should add a little bit of sugar, because the dish really needs a touch of sweetness. So I added to 1.5 cups of rice wine vinegar pure, I added 1 teaspoon of some Jamaican brown sugar I had on the shelf, just 1 teaspoon, and 1/4 cup of soy sauce, and, I think the original recipe says like 10 or 12 cloves of garlic. I had the inside of a head of garlic, had a lot of little cloves. So I guess about the equivalent of a dozen cloves of garlic. Now, to peel all this garlic is the only chore with this dish. And the way I do it is I crush it slightly with the heel of my hand. And then you can peel off the paper, the skin, more easily. Of course, if you, with a paring knife, cut off the end of the garlic that was attached to the head, that also helps. So it's a tedious job. If you got 12 big cloves of garlic, it's less work. And also, but crush them ever so slightly. Then throw that into the marinade. Now, I used only 2 little whole dried red peppers, even though the recipe called for 3, because I was afraid it was going to be too much, and Harned would like it. So I only used 2, but since neither of us found it hot, I'm going to use 3 next time. And 1.5 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper. And I might actually make that 2 teaspoons next time. So you stir all the marinade ingredients together, and in that marinade I put 4 leg thigh joints. It was amounted to 3 pounds of chicken. So they were hefty legs and thighs. And I marinated it at room temperature because I put it up in the morning and I wanted to eat it for lunch. And so I left it at room temperature, I would say 5 hours. 5 hours. And turning the chicken in the marinade a couple times during that period. And then you put it all in a pot. By the way, the marinade is going to barely cover the chicken. You could do this with all thighs, and because thighs will take up less space than a leg thigh joint, maybe it will cover for, I would say, 6 thighs. So, you put it in a pot, and don't worry if the liquid is not covering everything, because as the chicken cooks, it produces its own liquid, and you don't want a lot of liquid here. You want just enough to cook the chicken. So I simmered this very, very gently for a half an hour, covered, and I saw that the chicken was fully cooked. So I took the chicken out and put it aside. And then, and this was a comment, several comments on the recipe. The recipe tells you to cook down the juices for 10 minutes until it becomes the consistency of heavy cream. Not happening. So I boiled mine down for a half an hour, and then I got impatient and decided to see if I brushed it on the chicken, was it going to stick? And so I put the chicken on a baking sheet, and I brushed it with the marinade that's now boiled down, not quite to heavy cream, but quite intense. And I brushed that on top of the chicken, and then I put the chicken under the broiler for 5 minutes, turned it over, brushed the other side as generously as I could. Now, the bottom side, the not skin side, has little crevices, so in fact the marinade with this touch of sugar should actually caramelize on the underside and give you a nice little crust after 5 minutes under the broiler. And then I turned them over one more time, brushed them one more time, and that only took about 3 minutes under the broiler, and it was all done. By the way, the 4 leg thigh joints were too much. So we each ate one, and then we had another one for dinner. And, this is pretty good at room temperature. It didn't have to be hot out of the pot. And my physical therapist is Filipino, so I'm eager to bounce this off of him. He cooks every night for his wife and kid himself, but he doesn't cook Filipino. I'm wondering if his mother makes this. So speaking of being a Globovre, as I said, I always go back to my Italian stuff. And as I said, we're eating carbonara for Thanksgiving. However, I do like American things, too. And here's something that you might want to do for Thanksgiving that I'm going to do sometime over the weekend as my other indulgence. The other thing I'm craving is, for Thanksgiving especially, is bread stuffing. We had Caesar salad the other night without the croutons, and that was fine. And I would do that again with some, maybe, as the diners all do, with a piece of grilled chicken on top. But stuffing is really heavy-duty carbohydrates. So I eyed at my market the other day the bag of bread alone. Is a bakery, well distributed, probably in your neck of the woods too. Bread Alone makes croutons for Thanksgiving from their really delicious bread, and I use that these days. I mean, I sometimes have enough, in the days when I was eating bread all the time, I would have Bread Alone actual bread in the house, and then I would dry it out, and there were my croutons. But if you don't have dry, good bread, these are good ones. And my basic stuffing is a lot of sautéed onions and celery and butter with sage. I actually put the sage in with the butter and the onions and celery because the butter picks up a lot of flavor from the sage.
And
I mix that in with my croutons and moisten it all with chicken broth. But here's the thing: if you're having a quiet Thanksgiving, meaning you don't want to make a turkey or a whole turkey, you can bake chicken, or even a butterflied spatchcock, they call it, spatchcock chicken, over the stuffing in a casserole, and you'll get all those nice drippings from the chicken going onto your stuffing. And you could do the same thing if you were doing it even, I was going to say a small turkey, but the smallest turkey you can get is 12 pounds. It's a big turkey for 2 people, or 4 people even. Although my nephew Brian bought a 12-pound turkey because it's just going to be the 4 of them, and he's going to brine it in buttermilk. I'll tell you how that turns out. I'm going to get my stuffing by baking it in a pan underneath probably chicken thighs.
You talked about Bread Alone Bakery. Bread, it's made here. There's Boyceville, New York.
There you go.
Kingston, New York, Rhinebeck, and Woodstock.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and
That's right. They're almost your local. You can be locavore with them. It's even locavore for me.
That's exactly right. It's in New York.
Yeah, so I know. But today actually, we're going to eat Italian food, but with Mexican roasted peppers. See, that's Globovre.
That is.
Yeah, I'm making these little steaks from a recipe. I've been making it. I can date it. Okay, it's from Marcella Hazan's first cookbook, 1976. So, and I knew Marcella actually before the cookbook, but this is a recipe I definitely got from the cookbook itself. And she does it with shell steaks. I do it. I from the media. I saw this recipe. I said, this is a good way to do filet mignon, which has no flavor. So, and they're pan broiled fillets, and then you deglaze the pan with half marsala, dry marsala, and half dry red wine. So let's say a half a cup. And as soon as you scrape up any bits from cooking the steaks to your liking, however you do it, you can. Actually, there's not much fat in a fillet. So if you're doing fillets, I would glaze the pan first with some olive oil. Anyway, you add a chopped up clove of garlic, let's say a half a teaspoon, even a teaspoon of fennel seed, and then this is the thickener. There is no thickener to this sauce. You just let it cook like that, the garlic, the fennel, the two wines, and then once it starts cooking down a little bit, you can add a tablespoon of tomato paste. Tomato paste does act as a thickener. And you stir in the tomato paste, and I always put in a little hot pepper, but you could just use freshly ground black pepper if you want. Now, I was reading the recipe over again this morning, and I had a laugh because written in 1976, ingredients were very different than availability of ingredients, I should say, now. And in a note to the recipe, Marcella, who, by the way, did not write in the English language, this book was written by her husband, Victor, and I'm sure this was Victor's prejudice as much as Marcella's. Do not buy crushed red pepper flakes, he says, in the note at the bottom. You have to use whole hot peppers. I happen to have whole hot peppers always in the house. I buy these little very hot Calabrian peperoncini hot peppers, but I must say I find I can buy Calabrian hot red pepper flakes, and they're fabulous. They just don't stay as long as the whole ones, so I don't buy it. But anyway, and there were other. I had a laugh. There were other prejudices and things in the book. Like he opens up the Victor. I'm saying he because it's really Victor. Victor was, I'm not sure where he was born. His parents were Turkish Jews, and his father was a furrier on 57th Street. So I think Victor mainly grew up in New York. Marcella, of course, grew up in Emilia-Romagna, in Cesiatica is the name of the town, is on the Adriatic. But in the introduction to this steak recipe, Victor says, Italians did grilled meat hundreds of years before the Americans did, as if, like we ever claimed we invented grilled meat. But, what he doesn't want to acknowledge that it's the most primitive possible way of cooking meat, and probably Stone Age Neanderthals cooked their meat on a flame. So Italians can't claim everything, although they love to.
Italians and Greek. The Greeks.
Well, that was satirized in my big, what was it called? My big fat Greek wedding or whatever.
That was great. He was so great in that role. Doing that.
Yes, he was. Now, has anybody noticed, and I did a little internet search this morning, and a few people have noticed but not really commented, if you've watched The Crown on Netflix, that the 4th season just started, well, just was released. I'm almost finished with it. I'm up to the last episode. Has anybody noticed that Margaret Thatcher cooks all the time? The Iron Lady, this really tough broad, she loves to cook for men. She cooks for her cabinet were all men. She claims in this version of history that she didn't trust women in positions of power, even though, and she says this to the Queen. But she likes to. She apparently liked to cook for her husband Dennis almost every night. She cooked a kedigiri, which I have to look up, but it's a Raj dish. It's one of those meat with curry powder, and she also cooked a shepherd's pie. You could tell from the mashed potatoes, and it was funny and interesting that this really tough woman. It reminded me of my friend Nika Hazelton, who has major Sharon connections in that she was a great friend of the Buckleys, and for many, many years, I mean, could be almost 30 years, was a culture columnist, largely about food and travel, for the National Review. Isn't that the Buckley paper, the National Review? Yeah. In fact, Priscilla was her dear personal friend, Priscilla Buckley. And Nika, in her very first cookbook, which was called Reminiscence and Ravioli, about her childhood in Italy. You know what? Maybe it was in another book. But in any case, she has a long essay about how women should not only cook for... I mean, by the way, Nika was a very, very tough woman, a very strong woman, a very accomplished woman. And she thought that women should cook for men didn't belong in the kitchen, and she always cooked for... she always had dinner parties, and she did all the cooking, and this was true. But the thing about Nika that I always thought was so ironic is that what she really loved to do was to peel fruit for men. Okay. This tough woman, big Brunhilde type, even though she grew up in Rome, very Germanic in temperament. Her father was German. Her father was a German diplomat who married a Roman beauty, or at least beautiful, according to Nika. But anyway, she liked to sit at the head of the table with a man on either side of her. It was often me, and peel fruit, pears, apples. You couldn't just bite into a piece of fruit in her house.
Had to be peeled. Okay. All right, Arthur. Well,
all right. Well, anyway, so it's steak today. Carbonara. Think of me as I'm eating my spaghetti on Thursday.
I will think of you in spaghetti carbonara and wish you you both a very happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, everybody stay safe, stay home, please.
And don't wear your mask while eating turkey. Okay.
You don't have to wear a mask in your own house.
No,
I don't
you
believe.
No, you don't. Even though I see people with their masks on alone in their own cars, that always gets me a little funny.
Well, you know what? I sometimes find myself wearing my mask in my car only because I forgot to take it off.
Okay.
No, really. Masks have become so automatic as soon as we walk out the door. Actually, when a neighbor comes, I do talk to my neighbors. I mean, like the people who live on my floor. Yeah. There's only 4 other people. But we all wear masks, even in the hallway. And in our building, there's a sign as you walk in the building you must wear a mask, and only 2 people are allowed in the elevator at a time. And the chairman of our board of directors measured from one corner to the other corner, and it was 8 feet from one corner. So you can stand in the corners of the elevator with a mask on and be safe.
All right.
But these are the precautions we take in a city where we live close to each other.
Yep, absolutely. Well, once again, happy Thanksgiving, Arthur, and we will speak to you next week.
Everybody have a great week.
Take care. That is Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, here on Robin Hood Radio. Underwriting support for Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, John Andrews Restaurant on the Hillsdale Road in South Egremont, 413-528-3467, and on the web, jarestaurant.com. Rubiners Cheesemongers and Grocers on Main Street in Great Barrington, 413-528-0488, rubiners.com. Hillsdale Home Chef, more information, 518-325-7000, hgshomechef.com.